Welcome back to State of the Union. I'm Jake Tapper. The day after last year's election, then Chief of Staff Mark Meadows received this text message urging him to pursue the, quote, aggressive strategy of appointing essentially fraudulent electors in 3 battleground states while the votes were still being counted. 3 sources tell me and CNN's Jamie Gangel that the January 6th Select House Committee believes that former Texas Governor and Trump Energy Secretary Rick Perry sent that text. Perry denies it, even though CNN has confirmed that the text did come from Perry's phone number. Joining me now, one of only 2 Republicans on the January 6th House Select Committee, Congressman Adam Kinzinger, Republican of Illinois. Congressman, thanks for joining us. I know you can't confirm or deny that that text came from Rick Perry's phone, but is the committee planning on bringing Perry in before the committee to answer questions?
Well, I think if we do that, if we decide he's somebody we want to talk to, that he can provide information that, one of the 300 other witnesses we've interviewed so far haven't, I think certainly that would be on the table. But here's an interesting thing, regardless of where that text came from, because I can't confirm or deny anything, is you look at no matter all the numbers of texts that are coming out or what people have been saying, and you kind of get a peek into the window of their world. Didn't seem like a lot of these texts were saying, hey, let's just figure out who got the most votes and declare that person president. It was everybody with this new kind of scheme and trick to get around the Constitution or to use a technicality of the Constitution. And I think we have to sometimes step back and say, I do believe there are probably some real did we break the law questions here. But even bigger than that, in my mind, is what does that say about the future of democracy? Do we truly believe in it, or is it all about win at any cost?
It's interesting. The committee released some truly remarkable texts, as you noted, sent to former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows while the Capitol was under siege that he gave to the committee. They came from politicians, Fox personalities, even the president's own son, pleading with Meadows to get then President Trump to call off that mob. Explain to our viewers why these texts don't just make for dramatic reading, but are materially relevant to your investigation.
Well, so it's materially relevant for a number of reasons. Obviously, we have a trail of Mark Meadows being aware now of what was happening at the Capitol. Not just, maybe I knew, maybe I watched news, and everybody may know that wasn't true, but you now have proof of it. People desperately pleading for him to get the president to be involved, because the president, for something like 182 minutes, nobody heard from him. Nobody knew what he was up to, despite this being all over the news, and we know he watches the news. I also think it's important, particularly with the Fox News side of things, is they went on TV that night, some of those people, and said, this may be Antifa, this may be the FBI. And in the last 10 months have continued that narrative. So they had such a chummy relationship with the chief of staff of the president. And then in some of those texts said, this is making us look bad. Not this is making you look bad or America look bad. This is making us collectively in our movement look bad. And so for the next 10 months, they're going to go ahead and obfuscate. But that's why that's so important as well.
I want to play something your fellow Republican on the committee, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, said this week.
Did Donald Trump, through action or inaction, corruptly seek to obstruct or impede Congress's official proceedings to count electoral votes?
Now, in that question, she appears to be deliberately referencing the language in a criminal statute, quote, whoever corruptly obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so shall be fined or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both, unquote. Do you believe that Donald Trump committed a crime, and is that something the committee is explicitly investigating?
I don't want to go there yet to say, do I believe he has? I think that's obviously a pretty big thing to say. We want to know, though, and I think we'll, by the end of our investigation and by the time our report is out, have a pretty good idea. We'll be able to, have out on the public record anything Justice Department needs, maybe in pursuit of that. Nobody, Jake, is above the law. Nobody. Not the president. He's not a king. Not former presidents. They aren't former kings. Nobody is above the law. And if the president knowingly allowed what happened on January 6th to happen, and in fact was giddy about it, and that violates a criminal statute, he needs to be held accountable for that. I'm not ready to go there yet, but I sure tell you, I have a lot of questions about what the president was up to.
So you are looking into that.
Yeah, we're looking at. So look, here's the thing with the report. January 6th is a very important day. We will get every bit of detail that we can possibly get on that. What I think, so that's important for the president's role, but what I think is almost more important is what led up to January 6th. What is the rot in the democracy that allowed the 6th to happen? And have we corrected from that sense? Because what really matters to me is, yeah, I want to hold the people guilty accountable. I want to make sure this never happens again. Otherwise, January 6th will have been, yes, a failed trial run, but sometimes a failed trial run is the best practice to get one that succeeds, a coup that would succeed in toppling our
Republican Congressman Jim Jordan acknowledged that he sent Meadows a text. He forwarded on the language from a former Pentagon official, and that text laid out how Pence, as vice president, could allegedly reject unconstitutional electoral votes. Obviously, that's a scheme, as you mentioned earlier in the show. Jordan's set to become the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee if Republicans take back the House next year. Can Jordan credibly chair that committee?
Can he credibly chair it? No. Can he chair it? Yeah. And I think, very likely he will, because 3 years ago or so, the Republican Party saw these non-serious legislators, these bomb throwers, these let's just get attention, as not real contenders. Now they basically run the Republican Party. I mean, what's Kevin McCarthy been doing the last year? Basically whatever Marjorie Taylor Greene tells him to do. And that's, I look at that and go, yeah, he could not credibly head the committee, but he certainly could head the committee. And look, as a party, and I say this to fellow Republicans, do you really think this is a winning solution for the future? Yeah, it may make you feel good because you're owning people and getting all angry and all that stuff. You think it's a winning thing for the future? I don't, but we'll see.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thanks so much for being with us. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and your growing family.
Thank you, Jake. Back at you.
Back to the breaking news this morning. Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat of West Virginia, saying he will vote no on President Biden's Build Back Better agenda. Let's go now to one of only 6 House progressives who rejected Biden's request last month to trust him that he would be able to get all 50 Democrats to pass the bill and to push forward on the infrastructure bill. Joining us now, Democratic Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts. So, Congresswoman, you were right. Let's get your reaction to the news that West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin says he's not going to vote yes on Build Back Better.
Jake, to be clear, my lack and deficit of trust was about Senator Manchin. He has continued to move the goalpost. He has never negotiated in good faith. And he is obstructing the president's agenda, 85% of which is still left on the table. And in obstructing the president's agenda, he is obstructing the people's agenda. I was listening to his interview earlier today, and he said it's a mammoth bill. You're right. It's a mammoth bill to address mammoth hurt, to lower the cost of elder care, child care, prescription drug costs, the child tax credit, which is so critical in combating child poverty. West Virginia, I believe, is a 7th in the country when it comes to child poverty. So by not advancing the Build Back Better Act, not only do we fail to meet the needs of the American people, their mammoth hurt in the midst of this unprecedented pandemic and pandemic-induced recession. Not only that, but we are going to put in his district, in his state, 50,000 more children at risk of going back into poverty by not advancing the Build Back Better Act, because the child tax credit is in that and it expired on Friday. Moreover, in his interview, he spoke about inflation. We know that there is inflation because of the impacts of this pandemic. So the most responsible thing that we can do is to pass the Build Back Better Act. We cannot allow one lone senator from West Virginia to obstruct the president's agenda, to obstruct the people's agenda. Jake, all I want for Christmas is a senator that has compassion for the American people and not contempt.
Well, you heard Bernie Sanders earlier in the program saying that Senator Schumer, the Democratic Majority Leader of the Senate, should bring the bill to the floor of the Senate for a vote anyway and force Manchin to vote no. Do you agree?
I do. Absolutely.
Do you think President Biden, in telling progressives, and I realize you were one of the 6 who were skeptical, not of Biden, but of Manchin, but do you think President Biden broke his promise? He said, I give you my word as a Biden, we're going to get all 50 Democrats on board.
This is about Joe Manchin obstructing the president's agenda, obstructing the people's agenda, you know, torpedoing our opportunity to advance unprecedented advancements to address the hurt that this pandemic induced recession has caused and to get this pandemic under control. So if he's serious about inflation, if he's serious about the pandemic, if he's serious about child poverty, then we need to advance the Build Back Better Act so that we can, in fact, build back better. This is 85% of the president's agenda, which has still been left on the table. Jake, that was not a vote that I took lightly, but I had great concerns and I take no joy in those fears playing out in real time. That by decoupling these bills, that we would cede all of our leverage. And that had everything to do with my credible concerns based on lived experience with Senator Manchin changing the goalposts continually.
Is there a strategy now to break up Build Back Better into smaller pieces and try to get 10 Republicans on board for some of them? For instance, paid family leave. Is there a way to get, for instance, Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, just north of you, on board with a smaller paid family leave bill that can get 60 votes in the Senate? Is that a strategy, given the fact that it looks like Build Back Better is dead?
Jake, this is all happening in real time, and I'm not one to cede defeat quickly. So I remain focused on keeping the pressure up on Senator Manchin, the White House using the full weight of this presidency to lean on this senator, to show solidarity with this Democratic Party and with the American people, and to stop obstructing the president's agenda, which is the people's agenda. This is a mammoth bill to address mammoth hurt. Let's get it done.
So Senator Sanders said just a few minutes ago that this would create a stark difference in the 2022 midterms, where Democrats are on one side pushing for lower prescription drug prices, child care, et cetera, the things that are in the Build Back Better, and Republicans opposing it. But I wonder if you think it might actually have the opposite effect of suppressing and depressing progressive voters, younger voters, voters counting on some of the things in the Build Back Better Act, and actually causing them to be disillusioned, disappointed, and not turn out to vote in 2022, even more than Democrats normally do not turn out to vote in the midterms.
Jake, it was a multi-generational, multiracial movement of the most marginalized, Black, Brown, AAPI, Indigenous, LGBTQ, disabled, who made this Democratic majority possible, and many of them issues-based activists, championing the need for police reform, to dismantle mass incarceration, to combat the climate crisis, to actualize racial justice, to cancel student debt. It is incumbent upon us to do everything possible to meet the needs of that most marginalized movement, which made this majority possible. We run the risk of risking the majority, not by going big, but by playing small. So, of course, I have concerns about us not keeping our promises.
Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, thank you so much. Merry Christmas. And thanks you for spending your Sunday morning with us. We want to wish